Faith Family Youth, how y'all doing? Thank you, bro. I don't need that. I don't need that. No, I don't need this. Thank you, man. Y'all give it up for my man right here. I don't know where the mark. I think that's from Sunday. Who went to church on Sunday? Who's excited to be in the house? Before I get started, I just want to say real quick, who brought a friend tonight? Who took me up on my offer? Wow. Stand up if you brought a friend. Just stand up. Give it up for every person that brought a friend tonight. I am so proud of you. Good job. Look at this room. Look at this room. Do you see how much fuller this room is from last week? Good job. Good job. That's you using your faith and your leadership, and I am absolutely proud of you, man. Now look at the seats up in the risers. It does need to be filled. Amen. So listen, I need you to keep bringing people. I need you to we're here every Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Come on, how many of you know someone needs Jesus? Someone that's not here. So make sure that you keep bringing people. Now listen, I got to honor all of those people that were brought. Let's give it up for all of the people that were brought tonight. Maybe you're here for the very first time. Welcome. We are so glad that you're here. If you don't know who I am, my name is Jared. I am the youth pastor here at Faith Family Church. And let me just say this. God is doing something here, okay? You might not believe in Jesus fully. You might be open to the idea to listening more about what this Jesus person is about, or you may be open to church. Listen, I just want to tell you, I can testify to this. Ask any of the students that stood up. God is moving here at Faith Family Youth. It's so evident, it's so prevalent that I've given my life to it. I've said no to some things that people would say yes to because I got to go all in with Jesus. So the Lord is doing something here at our church, and I'm so glad that you're here. And here's what I know about God. He wants you to be a part of it. He genuinely does. I think he's proud of you for coming. And if you soften your heart, if you don't let what I share tonight go in one ear and out the other, I think he'll speak to your heart tonight. So I'm super excited and honored that you're joining us. I know I said it earlier, but we're here every Wednesday. Say every Wednesday. Every single Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Bring a friend, come through, hear the word, be encouraged, grow in your faith. There's a lot of places you could be, but you chose to be here tonight, and I'm proud of you. So keep coming every Wednesday. Let's go. Let's give it up for Jesus. All right, let's get right into it. Tonight, I'm going to preach a shorter message, okay? We're doing small groups tonight. Come on, who's excited for small groups? Yep. After I preach, you're going to get sent to small groups. It's going to be grade specific, gender specific, and you're going to have conversations about what you learned tonight. Life-giving conversations. You don't got to be scared. It's going to be fun. It's going to be faith-building. It's going to be life-giving. But I've only got 15 minutes to preach, and I need y'all to pray that your boy only does 15 minutes because you know I like to go long, all right? So we're going to hop right into it. We're continuing week 2 of our series called Unbreakable. Say Unbreakable. It's a series on community. Now, if you weren't here last week, I want to encourage you. I need you to go to our YouTube channel, all right? It's FFC_YTH. If you weren't here last week, go to our YouTube channel, FFC_YTH, and watch my last message after tonight. Watch it. We talked about 2 things. The first being this. You need to find friends with faith. You need to find friends with faith. Listen, it's easy to find friends, but you need to find friends with faith. And the second thing I talked about was this, that you gotta be a friend with what? Faith. You've gotta be a friend with faith. Tonight, I wanna talk to you about leading your friends in faith. If you're taking notes, that's the title of my message, Leading Your Friends in Faith. Leadership, it has a role in all of our lives, whether you know it or you don't. Leadership plays a part in your life. You're probably leading somebody or you're being led by somebody. There's a lot of definitions for the word leadership, and there's many, but I think in a nutshell, this word really sums up what leadership is. Leadership is influence. Say influence. And every single one of you has influence. Every single one of you is being influenced. I'll prove it to you. I've told this story before, and it's time to tell it again. I've been with my wife for this November, 10 years. 10 years. We've been together for 10 years. We've been married for 4 years, but we've been together for 10 years. She's my high school sweetheart. We got together in 2014. I think I was a sophomore in high school in 2014, and she was a junior. Yes, I was the cool kid. I had a girl a grade above me. Come on, somebody. Went to 2 proms. Yup. Prom king and everything. I just had to throw that in there so y'all could boost my ego up a little bit. Okay, so I met Tori, and Tori, all right, first of all, I don't know if she's here, but beautiful, light-skinned girl with freckles. Your boy seen her, I was like, that's mine. I was like, come here, girl, what's your kick? Y'all don't even know what kick is, but you know what I'm saying? Seen her, she was a good girl, okay? She was a good girl. Anybody got a good girl? Hopefully you don't got bad girls. She was a good girl, okay? She made good grades. She did what she was supposed to do. She was a good girl. I admired that about her. Then there's me. I wasn't a bad kid, but I wasn't doing some of the things that I was supposed to be doing. And then she met me, and I didn't ruin her life, but I influenced her to do some things that maybe she probably wouldn't have done had she not met me. And I remember, I think it was my junior year, there was a party in high school, memorable, legendary. It was in a neighborhood off 146. I will not name that neighborhood. And your boy got invited. And I was like, hey, Tori, we going to this party. She's like, what? I can't go to a party. I've never been to a party. So okay, it's okay. Tell your parents that you're staying with your dad. Her mom and dad were separated. Dad lived in Baytown. Mom lived in Atascocita. Tell your mom you're staying with dad. Don't tell dad that you're coming here. You can come to Baytown, stay with my buddy, and we can go to the party. And she did it. We pulled up to the party. It was cool. It was dope. Music was playing. There were sodas and Bible studies, and it was cool. A lot of people were there. She'd never been to a party before. I took her to her first party. We were having a good time. I was encouraging her. I was like, this is fun, right? She's like, yeah, this is fun. And then next thing you know, we see red and blue lights like Caleb just said. Now, when I was in high school, they called the cops 12. Y'all still say that? 12, 5-0. The fuzz. Okay, cool. Well, we said 12. I remember we were in the backyard. A lot of people hanging out, and we see the blue lights. And one of my buddies runs outside. He's like, 12, it's the cops. He says that, and I kid you not, everybody takes off running. Everybody and their mama. I'm standing there like, bro, what the? And then Tori's like freaking out. She's like, I've never been to a party. I'm not even supposed to be here. People are running. The cops are here. My buddy, Javi, there's a trampoline in the backyard. Homie jumps on the trampoline over the fence. All I hear is, ugh! That's all I hear. I swear. I don't know what happened to him after that. So we see everybody else start running, and guess what we did? We ran. Yeah, real smart. Jumped the fence. There was a girl. She was kind of big. I ain't never seen that girl clear a fence so fast in my life, bro. It's like that athlete gene kicked in. I don't know what. I was like, where did that come from, girl? Get on the O-line. Come on. I'm not going to say her name because she might watch on YouTube, but she knows who she is. We start running, man. And listen, I'm an athlete. All right, I play football. I ran track. I'm taking off running. Now, Tori's little short thing. Like, she's not as fast as I am. And, the adrenaline's pumping. Cops are chasing all of the kids at this party. We're jumping fences. I just happened to forget about her for a moment. Not the entire time, just for a little moment. We make our way to a cul-de-sac. I put the jets on, bro. 4440, gone. I turn around, Tori's all the way on the other side of the cul-de-sac. I'm like, oh. So I stop and I wait. I'm like, come on. There's a big cop, big boy, all right? As big as that girl that cleared the fence. He's, he's standing right here. Tori looks at him, and she shakes her head. I'm like, he's big. You can just put a juke move on him and come on, like, you'll be good. He's like, I'm going to tase you. I'm going to tase you. I'm like, he ain't going to tase you. Come on, girl. Tori looked at me and said, and ran the other way. I swear, she turned her head and ran the other way. She will tell the story, and she'll say that that's not what happened, but that's exactly what happened. And I got the next day at school, everyone's like, Jared left his girl. No, I didn't leave my girl. She left me, okay? That's what really happened. At least that's what happened in my head. And I didn't go after her. The cop was right there. She ran back towards the party. So I ran the other way. So now we're separated. I'm freaking out. And I somehow end up in another neighborhood. I get a phone call from Tori. She's like, I got caught. I'm like, bro, no way. Bye. No, I'm just playing. I just said, I was freaking out. I was like, are you serious? I was like, no. Like, legit got on my knees. Like, I was freaking out. So, you know what? Listen, y'all don't know my mama. My mama will put the belt on me. Like, my mom will whoop me, okay? Y'all don't. Listen, my mom don't play no games, so I was already thinking about the consequence that I was going to face. In addition to that, Tori's mama is crazy too. She got a consequence she gonna have to face. And I'm like, okay, so, you know, to make a long story short, I was like, the cops, they weren't arresting her or nothing. They were just making all the kids that they caught call their parents to come pick them up. I had a good scheme. I called my boy David, my best friend. I said, David, I need you to act like Tori's stepbrother and say that your parents are out of town and then come pick up Tori. And my boy David, shout out to we're talking about friends. You got to find good friends. Don't find a friend like this, but he's a good friend because homie came and picked her up and he played it so well. He walked up, he's like, I am so disappointed in you. Played it so well. Mom and dad are out of town. And you acting like this? You're grounded. I'm telling mom. Cop looks. He's like, you're her brother? He's like, yeah, I'm her brother. I'm disappointed. Let me see your license. All right, you're good. Take her. Took her home. Mom and dad, I swear I just told my parents this story like 2 years ago. They didn't know this story happened until like 2 years ago. Tori was a good student, never been to a party. But what happened was I used my influence to lead her to an environment that she would have never gone to. In addition to that, now like I said, all of us have leadership. All of us are leading people. And also, all of us are being led in some way, some form or fashion. We're at the party, and everybody takes off running when the cops come. We had two choices. We could follow the crowd and make a stupid decision, run from the cops. It's funny now, but what if we got shot? What if we went to jail? Stupid decision. We could have followed the crowd and made a very unwise decision, or we could have stayed put and faced the consequence of our action. Some of y'all are sitting like, bro, I would have ran. I ain't facing no consequence. Don't run from the cops. All right, amen. Y'all can go home. Now I'm just playing. All of us are leading, and all of us are being led. Here's two hard questions I have for you. If you're leading, are you leading in faith? And if you're being led, are you being led by people of faith? Here's what you need to know. God is calling you to lead and to live in faith. There's value in leading and living in faith. The value is this: it's walking out the purpose God put in your life. Many of you always ask this question to me: what is my purpose? What am I on earth here to do? I want to do what God wants me to do. I'm telling you the answer. It's this: it's to lead and it's to live in faith. God is calling us to lead and live in faith. Tonight, we're going to talk about two leaders in the Bible that I think did a good job of this. They led and they lived in faith. We're going to be in Numbers chapter 13, verses 27 through chapter 14, verses 5. We're going to read quite a few verses tonight. I want to teach you, but I want to show you these two leaders. Now, before we read the main passage, as you turn to it, I want to just give you a little bit of context. God has called the Israelites out of Egypt, out of slavery. And he's taking them into a land of promise that he wants to give them. And he actually, I'm going to read this verse to you. It's not going to be on the screen, but Exodus chapter 3, verse 8, God says this to Moses. So I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians. He's talking about the Israelites. And lead them out of Egypt into their own fertile and spacious land. It's a land flowing with milk and honey. Remember that, milk and honey. The land where the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites now live. Where we're going to pick up in Numbers chapter 13, the Israelites are at that land. Like they are right there. It's like they're a few steps away from inheriting the land that God promised them. But before God takes them to the land, he says to Moses, I want you to send some spies into the land to inspect it and to see what any oppression or adversity or any challenge that you may face. I want you to inspect the land, see what it's got before you take it. And this is where we're going to pick up. They do that and they report back to Moses. Chapter 13, verse 27, book of Numbers. This is what it says. This was their report to Moses. We entered the land you sent us to explore, and it is indeed a bountiful country, a land flowing with milk and honey. Here is the kind of fruit it produces, but the people living there are powerful, and their towns are large and fortified. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. The Amalekites live in the Negev, and the Hittites and Jebusites and Amorites live in the hill country. The Canaanites live along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea and along the Jordan Valley. But Caleb tried to quiet the people as they stood before Moses. Let's go at once to take the land, he said. We can certainly conquer it. But the other man who had explored the land with him disagreed. We can't go up against them. They are stronger than we are. So they spread this bad report about the land amongst the Israelites. The land we traveled through and explored will devour anyone who goes to live there. All the people we saw there were huge. We even saw giants there, descendants of Anak. Next to them, we felt like grasshoppers, and that's what they thought too. Chapter 14. Then the whole community began weeping out loud, and they cried all night. Their voices rose in a great chorus of protests against Moses and Aaron. If only we had died in Egypt, or even here in the wilderness, they complained. Why is the Lord taking us to this country only to have us die in battle? Our wives and our little ones will be carried off as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to return to Egypt, to slavery? Then they plotted amongst themselves, let's choose a new leader and go back to Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell face down on the ground before the whole community of Israel. Here we have the Israelites, and God calls spies to go into the land and inspect the promise that God had for them. And I think it's really cool that at the beginning of the passage, they confirmed God's promise. Before they were freed from Egypt, God said to Moses, I read it in Exodus, I'm going to take these people out of Egypt into a land flowing with milk and honey. Milk and honey, it's a metaphor. Milk is like, I'm taking you to a land that is good for cattle. I'm taking you to a land that will produce some things for you. I'm taking you into a fertile land. They go to see the land, and they tell Moses, hey, it does flow with milk and honey. They confirmed the promise of God. Here's the fruit. We can show you, Moses. It's exactly what God said it was. But the problem is, they disregarded the promise because they were focused on what was seen. But the people living there are powerful, and their towns are large and fortified. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. The Amalekites live in the Negev. The Hittites and Jebusites and Amorites live in the hill country. The Canaanites live along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea and along the Jordan Valley. Listen, the promise, yeah, it's a land flowing to milk and honey, but there's a lot of fortified cities there. There's giants there. It's exactly what God said, but there's scary people there. There's some of you here tonight, and you can't lead in faith because all you are is focused on what is seen. You're too focused on your circumstance, whether it's financial, whether it's emotional, whether it's social. When you're focused on the things that are seen, you cannot live in faith, let alone lead in faith. Why? Because Hebrews chapter 11 verse 1, it says this: faith is confidence in what we hope for, and it's assurance about what we do not see. Faith is a linking between the unseen, the supernatural. It's the substance of things hoped for. When you're focused on what is seen, you're not focused on the things that are hoped for. So many of us here are fixated on the things that are seen. And it's keeping us from living and leading in faith. Because the Israelites were so focused on what was seen, they utilized their influence to spread the word amongst the people. But the other man who had explored the land with him disagreed. We can't go up against them. They are stronger than we are. So they spread this bad report about the land amongst the Israelites. They spread this bad report amongst the land to the Israelites. And what did the Israelites do? The community began weeping out loud. They cried all night. Their voices rose in a great chorus of protest against Moses and Aaron. If only we had died in Egypt. Or even here in the wilderness, they complained. Why is the Lord taking us to the country only to have us die in battle? You know, I think the second problem that I observe in our culture and in the Israelites in this passage is this: all you do is follow. You can't lead in faith because all you do is follow. Listen, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with following. There's a principle there. God is calling us to be submitted to authority. Everybody should be submitted to some form of authority. I'm submitted to a form of authority. Pastor Josh is my spiritual authority. Pastor Josh has authority in his life he's submitted to. There are people you're supposed to follow. But the problem is all you do is follow. Specifically, all you do is follow people that have no faith. I think it's interesting that the Israelites, they said, it would have been better for us to die in Egypt. It would have been better for us to go back to Egypt and be slaves. Why did God lead us here? How dare they say that? God split the Red Sea for them. God was with them in a pillar of fire and a pillar of smoke. God did some amazing things. They saw it with their very eyes. Could you imagine seeing the Red Sea split when Moses put the stick in the water? Only God could do that. Yet they question it. If only we had died in Egypt. The problem with just following is you rob yourself of God's blessing. I think it's interesting that they made the comment, it would have been better for us to die. Because they made that comment, you know what happened? God didn't let them inherit the land. because they couldn't get the slave mentality out, because they grumbled and complained, because they were ungrateful. What they said, it came to pass. They died in the desert. They said it would have been better for us to die. Guess what? They did. They didn't inherit the land. The next generation did. God said, okay, you're robbing yourself of this blessing because you don't follow in faith. And they close this passage out by saying, let us choose a new leader to go back to Egypt. Wow. You've made up your mind. Like, you know you're going to go back to Egypt. You don't want to go into the land because you're scared. Why do you need a leader to lead you back to Egypt? I think that the problem is some of us have made up in our minds that we're going to follow these people because they're doing what we want them to do. They're going where we want them to go, not where God is calling us to. It's easy to follow a leader that's doing what's popular, that's doing what's trendy, that's doing what you like. But just because they're doing what you like, what's popular, what's trending, doesn't mean that that is from God. You rob yourself of God's blessing. Some of you are hanging out with groups of friends and it's keeping you from experiencing freedom because they vape and you have a vaping problem and all you're doing is hanging out with people that vape. No wonder you're becoming free, not becoming free. Some of you are following people because it's popular and these people are participating in things that are sinful and you know they're sinful and you know you're struggling with this sin. But what sin does is it separates you from God. Can I be real? Can I preach for a moment? I'm almost done. I will take my time. 95% of men, I read this, struggle with pornography. 95%. It is an epidemic, a pandemic. It is problematic. There are boys in this room and you struggle with that. And you know you love Jesus, and every time you give into it, you feel what? Guilt and shame. And what does shame do? It causes you to hide. Hide from who? From God. Adam and Eve did it. They sinned and God was in the garden and they hid. You're wondering why you can't become free, but all you do is hang out with people that have the same problem as you. All you do is follow. All you do is listen to music that constantly talks about sex, money, and drugs. And you wonder why you're frustrated, because you're a sheep. You're a follower. So what do we do in light of that? Two things, and then I want you to talk more about it in a small group. The first is this. When your faith is put to the test, you gotta trust God. When your faith is put to the test, you've got to trust God. Let's read on in chapter 14 of Numbers, verses 6 through 9. Production's going to kill me because I got that a little backwards, so forgive me, guys. But Numbers 14, verses 6 through 9, it says, 2 of the men who had explored the land, Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of, I don't even know how to pronounce that, tore their clothing. They said to all the people of Israel, the land we traveled through and explored is wonderful land. And if the Lord is pleased with us, he will bring us safely into the land and give it to us. It is rich. It is a rich land flowing with milk and honey. They didn't forget the promise God gave them in Exodus. I am taking you to a land flowing with milk and honey. Do not rebel against the Lord. Don't be afraid of the people of the land. They are only helpless prey to us. They have no protection, but the Lord is with us. Don't be afraid of them. Come on, are there any Joshuas and Calebs in the crowd? God's looking for some Joshuas and he's looking for some Calebs. He's not looking for some people that are going to follow culture and the way of the world. He's looking for some people that will stand the test and stand in faith. But listen, faith will be tested. Faith will always be tested. I think it's interesting that God said that they were going to inherit the land of the Canaanites. I'm going to give you this land flowing with milk and honey. That is your inheritance. I am giving this to you. God is a man of his word. If he says it, it's coming to pass. But I think it's interesting that when they get to the land, he says, I want you to send spies to inspect it. Why would God, if you're going to give me the land, why do I need to send spies to inspect it? Perhaps God was testing their faith. Perhaps God was waiting to see what response he would get when they see the adversity. Perhaps God wanted to see who would rise up in faith and be a Caleb or a Joshua, and who wouldn't. Faith will always be tested. When you say yes to Jesus and you say yes to faith, God will test it. But the testing isn't meant to break you, it's meant to make you. And you can trust God in the middle of the testing. Isaiah chapter 26 verse 4 says, trust in the Lord forever, for the Lord himself is the rock eternal. He's the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. Come on, listen, when you're going through a testing, you got to get in the word and know what the word says when you're going through hard circumstances. Because sometimes when you're in a testing, you feel lonely. But when you're lonely, you can remember that Hebrews 13:5 says that he'll never leave you nor forsake you. When you're going through a testing, sometimes you feel like you can't conquer it and things aren't working out for your good. But you can remember Romans chapter 8 verse 28 that he's working all things for the good of those that love him and are called according to his purpose. Come on, you've got to trust God in the testing. The testing is meant to produce something. It's meant to produce something beautiful. Oftentimes, blessings come after the testing. Some of you are waiting for your blessing, but you still haven't endured the testing. The last thing is this. Face popular culture with boldness. Oh man, we need a generation that will face popular culture with boldness. If every single one of you in this room had some boldness in the face of culture, the world would change. Oh, don't you see the world? It's divided. It's crazy. There's people out there trying to tell us that there's more than two genders. Listen, I'm not coming against anyone that struggles with same-sex attraction, but there's truth and then there's the world. The truth will set you free. Just because I tell you the truth doesn't mean I hate you. I tell you the truth because I love you. This is a divided year. This is election year. You're going to go to universities that are secular, that are not for Christianity, that hate Christ, actually. You need to be bold. Come on, God didn't call the church to cower. He called the church to walk by faith and not by sight. He called the church to be the hope of the world. You've got to be the hope of the world. You can't be a follower of the world. You've got to lead the world. If the church is meant to be the hope of the world, then be it. He's waiting for some Joshuas and some Calebs. Who's going to be a Joshua and who's going to be a Caleb?